We're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark DeMeo. I'm your host. I'm here with my co-host, my partner in all things law enforcement. What's up? The very handsome Bill Cannon.
Oh, thanks. You forgot that. You haven't been saying that recently. Yeah. I really needed that to keep my ego up, you know?
We got a great guest tonight, Bill.
I know. So he was referred to me by a guy who was in the sister company. I was in 8548 in the academy, and he was in 8547, Mark Mulitz, who I've known for so long. And his dad was a first grade detective in the 2-0 squad. So I've known him for a long time.
All right. So I'll introduce him. Our guest tonight is a retired NYPD police officer. And if you think he quit a hard job, he went on to get even a tougher job. Don't ask me why he's doing this right now, but he's currently a global crisis communication strategist.
Mark, look at that headshot on the screen, man. He's a handsome guy too, huh?
Yeah, listen, I watched some of the videos. He's a media. What does he call it? He's branded. He's a media expert. Okay, and he's here tonight to join us. He's got the toughest job in the world. He represents or tries to come in and shine a positive light for law enforcement whenever they get involved in a heavy shooting or a major case. And they call him the Fixer, Rob the Fixer Tufano. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, there's some branding if I ever heard it. Look at you guys, man. I mean, the work that you're doing is incredible. Great intro. Mark Mulitz, just a gentleman, Bill, with no doubt, and happy that he was able to get this coordinated. I've been watching from afar in sunny, not so sunny tonight, North Carolina, and you guys are doing tremendous work. A big fan.
Thank you so much. You know, it's funny, Rob, you use the same expression. I think ESU is going to sue you. You know the expression when ESU says, when the public needs help, they call the police. When the police need help, they call ESU. And on your bio, it says, when the police need help, is that right? Yeah, they call Rob Tufano. I'm like, what?
Took a little creative license there, you know? Just worked up.
If you throw in the word departments right after that, when police departments need help.
Yeah, and what you think that gives me a little wiggle room there? Is that what you're thinking?
I think it's just an extra word. But I'm a word connoisseur. That's what I do for a living.
I have to take some of that advice. The last thing I need more attorneys sniffing around.
Nobody. I doubt any. That's not a real thing, is it? I mean, that's just like a.
In this day and age, you don't know what the hell to say anymore. So better safe than sorry, and just exercise out of an abundance of caution for sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Mark, I want to show. This is from Rob's website, and just to show a little bit about what he does in his job. And we're going to put him on the screen with this video, and we're going to add him to the screen now, and he's going to talk to us.
This develops publicly in law enforcement. You better believe that a lot hangs in the balance. Public perception, community trust. How about that police department's brand, their reputation? I'm Rob Tufano with Tufano Media. And our team has managed some of the most high-profile crises that develop in law enforcement. Officer-involved shootings, in-custody deaths, or any other type of crisis that develops that has the potential to impact a police department's brand and reputation. Our team is positioned to help them strategically manage it. We at Tufano Media, we work exclusively with law enforcement. We know law enforcement. That's because we are law enforcement.
Hey, no offense, Rob, but all I kept thinking about when I'm watching the whole thing is this guy spends a lot of time in the gym.
Oh, look at you, man. The hits just keep coming.
This guy, look at the arms on his back. Past the arms.
You know something? I was thinking that he's taking acting lessons because that was like a monologue, man. I was almost crying. I was almost ready to start crying.
All the words were just white noise. There were just white noise in the background. I'm like, look at his arms. Look at his. Look at how tight. Look at that jacket. The way it's taken in. Man, I wonder what he does.
Hey, I got a hell of a tailor. What can I say? Miss J.
A cross trainer. So it's an interesting occupation. How'd you get involved in this? How did you transition into media? From
wild,
how much
twisty.
time did you do in the police department?
Only did 11. Just on the fringe of 11. I got on in 90 and went right to Midtown South over on West 35th Street, and I was fortunate. I wound up in an RP in a sector, and gosh, it was only a couple of months, and that was unheard of. You wound up in Midtown South, the country club, and strong likelihood you're going to be at a foot post for a couple of years, and not a steady foot post, but I got fortunate.
Bill, I'm sorry to tell you, Bill. I think we have somebody whose balls was dipped in butter here.
Oh yeah, no, he's dripping butter.
I tell you,
it's a perfect.
One command that's one up from the South is the North. The North is all the big bosses' kids, hello, this is Chief so-and-so. Megan needs off tomorrow. Give her off, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, maybe it was just the luck of the draw. I don't know how the hell it happened. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, the luck of the draw. So what happened then?
So do a little time there, and I think it was in Washington. You guys remember the Washington Heights riots?
Yes.
I wasn't off very long, just a couple of years, and they mobilized us and they sent us up there, and I think that was a real turning point for me. And with the job, started really paying close attention because we were up there for several nights, during that whole disaster. And I was really just keeping a keen eye on the way the media was covering that whole thing. And it seemed to me at the time that they never missed an opportunity, the press, to kind of put a wedge between the cops and the community, and it broke your heart. You're up there and you're seeing this thing, night in and night out, people losing their businesses and, property being destroyed. And we're talking, we're not talking millionaires. These are blue collar people that are just trying to keep their businesses afloat, busting their asses to make it work. And the press just never missed an opportunity to put this wedge there. And I'm watching this coverage and the way that it was, just covered in the press. I'm like, it's disingenuous. It looks like, it's all driven by their agenda to divide. And that always stuck with me, and had some opportunities years later, having met some folks that kind of helped me get some headway and getting my foot into a door with some internships in the press, because it intrigued me following the Washington Heights thing. Wound up getting a gig at the Fox News Channel as a writer, and they liked me there and allowed me to start going out with some reporters and putting stories together that didn't go on air, but allowed me. I'm sorry?
What were you writing?
Just copy for the programs. There used to be a program called the Fox News Edge back in the day. It was like a
police copy
magazine. What's that?
Police copy?
No, it was straight up just your garden variety headlines and current events that were kind of coming in daily. And I mean, it wasn't anything glorious or sensational, but I always had a pretty good ability to write, and they liked it. And then they gave me opportunities to kind of do some on-camera stuff as practice, as a favor. I was coming in on my own time after hours and put what they call a resume tape together. And essentially it's just me on camera showing some range and different things that I could do. And then the end game is you start mailing these things out, these tapes. And I did, I sent a few out, never to affiliates around the country that are looking for news reporters. And, I got lucky. I mean, right out of the gate, I was getting calls. And I get my first.
So you retired from the job at this point?
Yeah, I'm done. Now I'm done. I'm out.
Now, Rob, did you vest or you just left?
No, I retired. I took an early retirement, and that means my pension didn't kick in until my 20th. So, no, here I am going. No, so I mean, the kicker is, everybody thinks you get into the media and you're making this windfall. I guess I was making maybe 50 with overtime when I was leaving the job at almost 11 years. Brand new baby at home on Long Island. Had to come home and tell the wife I'm leaving the job and I'm starting a career in media now. I'm going to make $17,000 a year.
Wow.
In Binghamton, New York. That's where I started. Oh yeah. Right, of all places.
You dragged her up there with the baby?
She didn't even make it. She didn't even make it up there. I was smart enough not to sign a contract, because most of them try to get you locked into these contracts when you start at these television stations, and I wouldn't sign a contract, which allowed me to leave whenever I wanted. And as soon as I got there, I started sending more tapes out, and I got picked up in Roanoke, Virginia, Roanoke, Lynchburg, Virginia, right in the buckle of the Bible Belt, and left within 6 months of when I was in Binghamton, headed down to Virginia, spent 5-6 years there as a crime reporter, did some anchoring there before I get a gig in Charlotte, North Carolina. Big market. It is a big market, top 20 market. And that's where you start making the jack when you get to these bigger markets. And doing my thing here. Stayed in the media business for about 10 years. And I'll tell you, one night they assigned me to what they call spot news. I didn't have any ideas to bring to the table. And that means essentially that my assignment editor is going to send me out on spot news. I got to scanner surf. And this is the night that it turned for the media. I'm listening, wait for something to develop, and a double shooting comes out in West Charlotte, and that happens a lot. You think of the South, but Charlotte's been off the chain for several years with violent crime. And I race out there with my videographer in the news truck, and we get out there. And as soon as I get out of the truck, one of the sergeants out there on the scene says, "Yeah, what are you guys hearing? That there's a shooting out here?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, it's a fugazi, unfounded. You may as well just get back in the truck and forget about it. And here's the night of change. I get back in the truck, and I'm going to be straight up. I look at my videographer, and he looks at me, and I'm freaking disappointed. I'm disappointed that I didn't have anything to cover that night. Sure. And I mean, now, I don't delight in saying it. It's not anything I'm proud of. But I get home that night, and I get on the patio, and I get home at like midnight because I'm working the 11 o'clock show, and I'm like, dude, if this is what I've devolved into so far down on the food chain, where I'm pulling for a fucking double shooting, just so I have something to put on TV and get my face out there on television at night, then clearly it's time to think about a career change. And that was the night it turned. I started making moves to get out, and I did get out. And I'll tell you that business is a meat grinder. You think it's, the money's good, and, the exposure and notoriety is all fine. But, the temptation of,
Well, Rob, if I could just stop you for a second. We've seen in the last, just say the last 5 days, we had the shooting in Atlanta,
yep,
which they so wanted it to be a bias incident. The press so wanted it to be. They wanted it to be that anti-Asian bias crime. And when it turned out not to be, they were really disappointed in that. And then we had the shooting in Boulder, Colorado, where they wanted to jump on the fact that this is a male white. And then when it turned out to be a male Syrian, they didn't know what to do with themselves.
No.
And not just the press, but the progressive politicians didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They really did not know what to do because it did not fit their narrative. That's disgusting, No,
it's disgusting, but, not surprising. And look, I believe, and maybe I'm in the minority, I believe it in the profession of journalism. I think it's an important profession. I think they wield enormous influence, but they also need to wield enormous responsibility. And I'm going to be very honest. I've been more than underimpressed with the state of that profession over the last year or so. I mean, I think it's that line has become so blurred now between journalism and activism that you can't differentiate between the two. And that's disappointing.
Rob, I want you to watch this, and this is what I'm talking about a little bit. I'm going to put this on the screen, and wait, hang on one second. I just screwed it up. I want to share this on the screen, and this has to do with the Boulder, Colorado shooting, and this is going to be the chief speaking, and you could see how upset she is. Can you guys hear it? Oh, no.
God. I also want to commend the heroic actions of the officers responding not only from Boulder PD, but from across the county and other parts of this region. Police officers' actions fell nothing short of being heroic. I also want to thank the men and women who responded, including state, local, and federal authorities. Obviously, this is a very complex investigation that will take no less than 5 days to complete. And again, my heart goes out to the victims of this incident. And I'm grateful for the police officers that responded. And I am so sorry about the loss of Officer Talley. And again, we will be here working night and day.
Heartbreaking, right?
Yep. Wrenching, heart wrenching.
And, you know, it's like, it's those things that we as the police, we see, and politicians or the press, they can't appreciate. You know, here's a chief. I'm sure she's got a lot of years on the job. She's no kid. She's practically in tears because one of her cops was killed, you know, and it's just, and getting the word out to the public, which is what you do, is so important. And it's not just putting a spin on it. It's putting it out there correctly so that it doesn't do damage to the police department.
Yeah, and to see that kind of emotion, let's face it, guys, we've all been around a little while. You know, that's a departure from what we customarily see when you see a police chief or a sheriff get out there. You know, from the time we walk into the training academy, we're kind of wired that you don't editorialize. You know, it's just the facts, man. Keep it airtight. And to see someone display that kind of emotion like that is just a departure from what we historically see. But it's that kind of emotion that really grabs the attention of society. We could spit out data and we could spit out facts, and that, don't get me wrong, all that kind of stuff's important. You want to start to shape a narrative and advance a story and capture the attention of people and get traction. You have to have some kind of emotion attached to it, and that wasn't manufactured. I don't know this woman, Chief Harold, but it seemed genuine, and I think a lot of people were moved. I mean, it's the first time I've seen that. It was
in your media campaign, you would use that. That's great footage for you, right?
Absolutely, but why would it be? And why shouldn't the world see that?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, if you had that campaign right now, that would be good. That would be good footage for you.
Oh, it'd be incredible. Are you saying if I was still on the media side and I was covering it as
that's what your company does, right? If that wasn't a good shooting, but you had some type of emotion, whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's good for you. Yeah,
and it's look, and it's a really neat, a bit of a needle thread. You never want to manufacture any of that because I think you lose credibility there. It's just anything that's disingenuous, but you don't want to squelch that either. And trying to get law enforcement out of their comfort zone and out of their box a little bit and show some emotion and show some relatability and a human side. That's what advances narratives, and that's what shapes public perception. And it's different. It really is a departure from us. It's not anything we're accustomed to. We're not accustomed to communicating that way. We could have all these slick campaigns about how we got to humanize this and humanize that and start social media accounts and do fucking hokey pokey campaign dances to show that we're human. How about we just start acting like we're human once in a while, right? Just acting relatable when we communicate, right? When we're out there publicly, not be afraid to show some vulnerability and some emotion. Maybe then society will start seeing those of us in the profession as relatable and as human. And that's just my 2 cents on that.
Rob, I want to show you this video too, and you'll see how the NYPD responded to it, and not a spin, but let me just get this up on the screen. Okay.
Two New York cops had a surprise shootout with a domestic abuser in Queens who just shows up and starts firing. The cops wounded, but continued firing as they fell to the ground, their own blood all around, saving lives. A warning, this video is very graphic. Eyewitness News reporter Joe Torres with the video released today. Joe?
Bill, this shooting happened in November, 2 days before Thanksgiving. The video from the officers' body-worn cameras shows a pair of veteran officers escorting a domestic violence victim back to her home in Springfield Gardens, Queens. The video also shows how those officers saved that woman's life when her abuser arrived at the home and started shooting.
We'll go home with you just to make sure he's not here and everything's safe and okay.
2 minutes later, police officers Christopher Wells and Joseph Murphy would quickly see things were neither safe nor okay. 8 seconds of sheer terror recorded by the body camera of police officer Wells. Here are those same 8 seconds from the camera of Officer Murphy. We stopped the video the moment one bullet struck him in the hand. The barrage started moments after 41-year-old Rondell Gopi arrived at the home on 179th
He's got a gun
Street
in his hand right
Springfield
there.
Gardens. Here he is walking into the home, a gun clearly visible in his right hand. He says nothing before opening fire 11 times. Both officers returned fire, 9 shots from Officer Wells, 15 shots from Officer Murphy. Mr. Gopi died at the scene. Investigators found he had not one gun, but 2. Mayor de Blasio and the police commissioner spoke shortly after the.
Here we have a situation where a woman was in danger, and these officers went to protect her, only to find themselves in harm's way immediately.
The shooting left both officers injured. A bullet hit Officer Wells in his right thigh and fractured his femur. Another bullet hit Officer Murphy in both hands. The domestic violence victim was unharmed.
I guess, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, but at least we didn't send the social workers out there to manage that. Could you?
Well, you know something, the amazing thing about that, and I think that's great that the public gets to see that whole incident took 8 seconds. And in those 8 seconds, those 2 officers fired 24 shots.
Yeah.
And luckily, they killed that guy. And I say luckily because he intended bad things to happen to them, obviously. And then, the press, it sort of gets sickening the way they're like, oh, we warn you, this is graphic. I mean, they love that it's graphic, and they're trying to warn you, oh, this is graphic. And then when I see that dirtbag of a mayor get up there, he does everything he can do to make the cop's job harder. And there he is standing up there. He shouldn't even be allowed to address them,
Yeah, I mean, it's expedient, and it's self-serving. I don't think any of us are fooled by it, and and heaven forbid if any of one of those troops, those officers would have gone down. I'm sure he would have been there for the cameras, for the funeral, and everything else like that. But go back, Bill, if you could, to the to the body worn being released, and good on them for releasing that, because far too frequently the only time we see body worn is an officer involved in some kind of questionable or a questionable officer-involved shooting, that may or may not have been justified. Far too infrequently, are they releasing body-worn camera video footage of officers operating in heroic kind of manner, de-escalating situations, saving a life, like they did here. I mean, you scroll through YouTube right now, put the keyword in there, body-worn camera, and I dare you, every single last one of them is officer-involved shooting, racial this with an officer-involved shooting, in custody death, white cop, black suspect. It's kind of encouraging to see that some are taking a more strategic approach, releasing body-worn camera that shows officers saving a life instead of, tragically they had to take a life here, but it's
not tragic. He got what he deserved.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm of the mind. Look, and maybe
notice I'm not on the police department anymore. I'm not in public relations. That guy got what he deserved, and people need to know if you shoot at the police, they're going to kill you because they're better shots than you are.
Well, yeah, and the alternative would have been entirely unacceptable because we're talking about innocent lives that were on the lines there. The police officers notwithstanding. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, good on them for getting some positive life-saving. That was there's no you could. That's not a bank shot. This isn't hyperbole. That was life-saving work there. And we don't see that. We don't see that nearly enough. What we see is that what gets requested from the press when there's a questionable shooting or a shooting that may not be justified. And that's really short-sighted from a strategic approach, and something that I'm trying to convince more and more police departments I work with. You got to start showing this kind of life-saving work, this de-escalation work, this monumental work that's being done. Because if you're an outsider and you're not immersed in the business like we are, and you're just, Joe Schmo banker, and you're looking at YouTube, everything is, racial this and officer involved shooting that and shooting unarmed suspect. The other, it doesn't square with reality. And it's just encouraging to see somebody thinking strategically enough to get this kind of content out there like this.
Absolutely. And something, it's a shame that it's a lot of times it's done to calm the community down too, because we've seen perfectly justifiable shootings across this nation, and they resulted in riots. And when you try to explain to these people, the officer was shot at. There's something called Article 35 of the penal law, at least in New York, that is justification. And he had every justification to protect his own life by using deadly physical force.
Yeah, but you know, you look at some of the bigger ones, the ones that have really gone sideways, and there've just been, you know, state of emergency and flat out riots for days. Look, all situations and OIS and situations like that, they're all unique, they're all dynamic. You know, they all offer their own unique set of circumstances. But I tell you, if you want to see all the ones that went off the rails and you did have riots that ensued, you want to find a common thread. The common thread is the void and the lag in communication. You go Ferguson, you go Baltimore, you go down the line. It's not necessarily the incident itself. Again, they're all unique. And look at Ferguson. You had weeks before anybody said a freaking word. How do you think these narratives?
You know, Rob, I'm so glad you brought up that case, because we didn't know what happened for days and days. We thought the gentle giant was a saint. I thought he was going to wear a priest collar, you know.
I'm as blue as they come, Bill. You know, but 2 weeks of a lag. The only information I have is a kid was walking up the street, jaywalking, and some white cop shoots him without any kind of perspective, context, or even any information whatsoever that was released. I'm ready to head to Ferguson and light something on fire. It's 2 weeks before we know that the kid strong arm robbery, steals the cigars, punches the cop in the face so hard he practically broke the kid's orbital bone, tries to wrestle his gun out of his holster. Takes us 2 weeks to get this. Yeah, we could scream and cry and yell about the media and activists and everything else like that all day. But until we're going to take some ownership as a profession and say we're going to manage the message and get out there and be proactive and not give others the opportunity to fill in our blanks for us, shame on us. You're going to see 100 more Fergusons.
Rob, that's what you do is so important. It really is, because many police departments don't do it well, you know.
Yeah, they die, but they are coming around. It's a shame that it takes situations like Ferguson for them to come around, but they're coming around.
You know, one of the things also, not to re-report the whole Ferguson thing, is that physical evidence does not lie. People lie. And when the blood of the perpetrator was inside the police vehicle and the spent shells were inside the police vehicle, and the other evidence that the officer was punched in the face and all those things, the struggle where there was exchange of evidence on both of their bodies, that you can't refute that. So when the perp's friend was telling a fictional story and the physical evidence told exactly the opposite, you know, then we have to put the physical evidence out there and explain to these naysayers, no, physical evidence is the absolute 100% truth. You can't lie about it.
Well, you know what? A lot of the pushback I get from, you know, those that are in the profession, especially from investigations and executives, is we can't release this because it'll jeopardize the case. The case will be tossed, this, that, and the other. And I always say to them, I always circle back, you know, hey, you know, Captain, how long have you been in the business? I've been in the business 28 years. I said, how many cases have been tossed or the DA wouldn't take or they declined to prosecute because he released too much information to the media? And, you know, I'm like, what, 15, 20, 30 cases? I mean, you've been doing this for 28 years. So obviously, there's got to be a lot of them, right? Nobody come up with one, ever.
Right.
It's a freaking unicorn. So I'll flip it. I'll say, all right, how many stories were taken out of context, sensationalized, or just reported flat out incorrectly because not enough information was released? I mean, I could think of 3 or 4 just in the last week. You know, That's how these things start to bubble up. It's that void, it's that lag in information and communication that oftentimes prompts a lot of these dust-ups. And it's a shame because it's so damn preventable. We just got to get out of our own way and dispense of this old way of doing things, man.
Usually the information that you get about the situation from the perp's point is from people doing their own homework, outside sources. It's never coming from the police department. There's no way, you know, he's been arrested 100 times. No way, you know, it's always coming from an outside source that, you know, reporting it. They did their own homework.
Well, that's a mark. I remember my first officer-involved shooting that I covered as a reporter. It was in a small city in Virginia. White cop, black kid, middle of the day, challenged neighborhood, spent the better part of 7 hours trying to figure out whether it was a clean shoot, whether it was a questionable shoot, because nobody would say a damn word. And I got a 6 o'clock story that I got to file for the broadcast that night. And I'll tell you what an option. I didn't have the option to go to my news director and say, hey, cops aren't saying anything. We're gonna have to scrap the story. Maybe we'll come back next week when the cops are talking. No, get out there, cover the story. You're gonna file a story. And what other option do I have? So what do I do, to your point? Walk around the neighborhood, start shaking hands. You know as well as I do, you roll one of those news trucks out into a community, people are coming out of the woodwork and everybody wants 15 minutes. And that happened. You had an older guy who was really respected in the community, had some less than flattering things to say about that department, had some pretty blistering things to say about what he allegedly saw out there when he saw that cop kill an unarmed black kid in cold blood in broad daylight in that community. So I called back to the public affairs office after I interviewed this guy. Nothing for their communications team. I'm about to go to air at 6, and this is the narrative that's cooking up. Nothing. Story airs, shit starts friggin' flying. Now, thankfully, this was before the inception of social media. The public affairs or the communications director says, "Oh, if you would have looked out there on the scene, you would have saw that there was a gun lying right next to the chain link fence by the body." Oh, now I'm a freaking detective. I'm supposed to figure this out.
Right, exactly.
I'm supposed to communicate that, because now this story's in the ether, and not only is it in the ether, but it's getting people really worked up. And we've seen this friggin' show before: unarmed kid gunned down by a police officer. You know, and they got the genie back in the bottle and got it squared up and wound up putting a press release and even pictures of the gun out in the nick of time before things were starting to get broken and things lit on fire. But I mean, we do it to ourselves time and time and time again, man, and love to blame everybody else oftentimes for our problems, man. We can't manage or control what the media is doing. We just can't. You know, they can in China. We just can't do that here, right? What we can do is manage what we're going to release and how we're going to communicate. And how transparent, dare I say transparent. I know it's white noise and almost cliche, but it's an important word, right? We can manage so much more than we do if we could just, again, break away from this old paradigm that nothing to see here, active investigation, everybody's hiding under their desks.
Rob, I want to show you this, because here was a public relations guy in the Atlanta case giving information, and to his left, or excuse me, to his right, as we look at it, is the governor. And if looks could kill, he would have been dead. I just want you to watch this.
Can't hear it, Bill.
Can't hear it. I'm sorry. Let me just remove him from the screen. I don't know why it was that low. What happened was, I'll just tell you what happened. He was reporting the case as not a Asian bias incident, but as that this guy had some sexual problems. And he was relaying that that's what the investigation revealed. That was the cause of it. And the governor was not having it. And I think he was like removed from his job after that.
What wasn't having it because it wasn't advancing the narrative that this was some kind of Asian hate crime?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I do some work here locally with some press and with a major city police department here. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I will say, following that, they all started doing public records requests on just the level of the rate of Asian victimization here. And we had analysts collect all the data for this police department I was working with, and communicated back to them that there just wasn't any rate of Asian victimization, much less a spike in it. And they tried every which way but Sunday to try to shove this square peg into this round hole. Guys, it's not a story. You know, why are you trying to generate one? I know the New York Times says it's a story, and you're kind of taking your orders from mothership here, but there's not a story. So you see something like that, you're witness to that display in Atlanta, and it's not surprising. It's not surprising at all.
Well, because it tells a completely different story. It's about, well, a massage parlor. That's not, they offer more than just the massage. You know, so because if he's got this sexual addiction and he's returning to the places that he frequents, because they're part of the problem, you know, whatever his mental I don't know what his mental culpability was, but you know what I'm saying? It just brings in a whole completely different narrative right now. It's not somebody looking to kill Asians. It's looking to kill prostitutes, or what he considers prostitutes, I guess.
Well, you know, you don't want to victim shame, but you also want the truth out there, you know? And they were calling the manager of this massage parlor just a very sweet lady who's the manager. No one said that she's the madam. She is potentially a human trafficker, because this is a massage parlor that employs people that, you know, are brought here to take a job in the sex industry, which a massage parlor is. And if you read the New York Times, you would have thought this happened at a church or a synagogue. You know, they didn't mention any of that stuff. None of it. You know.
Yeah, and I do. It's not lost to me. It is a tightrope to walk and not victim. You know, regardless of what you do, the high risk behavior that you may be engaged in, nobody deserves to go like that or to be victimized like that. It's just incredible that, you know, those in the press and others, politicians who, you know, have, you know, their own agendas, want to manufacture this kind of story when it's not a story. And come on, let's be honest. Politics aside, regardless of how you land, what's the big play here? That, you know, they still have this craven just infatuation with the former president, and is it because, you know, he called it the China virus, and now because of those words that, you know, people are lashing out and victimizing Asians as a result of, you know,
there's no doubt it's happening. There's no doubt it's happening. But I mean, the problem is, a lot of times it seems like people that are mentally unstable, a lot of these attacks that are happening are older people walking down the street, and you know, they're being blindsided, hit, you know, out of nowhere for no reason at all. So it's definitely happening. But just in regards to that, it just bothers me that, you know, you wouldn't mention that fact, like, or it's wrong to mention the fact that, you know, what was the guy's motive? As far as we know, this is what he said. You know what I'm saying? So I'm reporting to you what the perpetrator said to us, the reason why he did it. You take with it what you want, you know? So that's the point I was trying to make. I wasn't trying to say that these things aren't happening. I mean, they're definitely happening.
Sure.
Right. But in this incident, it wasn't the narrative that they were pushing. And, you know, investigation is an art and a science, you know, and part of the art is getting the suspect to make a statement, to give a confession. And he did. And he didn't say that he hated Asian people or that he killed them because of that. He said it was because of his sexual proclivities that he had that was banned by his church. So you either believe your investigators or send some social workers to interview this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, and it doesn't obviously it doesn't reconcile with, you know, with whatever the narrative is that they want to advance. And I guess, you know, that chief in Atlanta that you had referenced, I guess he's victim of it now, and, you know, pushing papers somewhere in the department now, living in obscurity and probably never to be heard from again.
I heard they transferred him to Midtown South.
Well, he could wind up in a hell of a lot of worse. Hope he knows where all the coops are, because there's some damn good ones there.
Mark, do you want to do the commercial?
Well, yeah, why not? Here we go. So, hey, guys and gals, just so you know, we're sponsored by the best hot sauce that's on the market right now. It's called Silk City Hot Sauce, and they have a lot of amazing flavors from mild to wild. Please visit the website, silkcityhotsauce.com, and put in OTC for off the cuff, and you'll get a 15% discount. And trust me, I've been putting it on my food all the time. I've dropped 10 pounds. The only joy that I have in my food right now, because everything that I'm having is bland, is I put a couple of drops of this hot sauce, and it flavors it right up. Trust me, you'll love it. Thank you so much. And visit silkcityhotsauce.com. Wow,
that was much smoother.
Yeah, you say that every week. You say that. You did. The third week in a row, he said that.
You did drop some weight, man. Look at you did a little chiseled jaw going here and everything like that.
Yeah, I've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. The eating, I had to change my eating. I had a lot of stomach pain, man. Got off meat for a while.
Well, you live that lifestyle too, right? What you do in the clubs and the comedy thing, and it's the
yeah. But I got an air fryer over the corona, over the pandemic, and I just started cooking. Doing recipes and cooking stuff. I was eating meat like 3 times a day. It's not good for you, especially with my age.
Yeah, you look good. You look good. It's all coming together.
Rob, one of the things that in crisis communication, do you remember the Beltway Sniper?
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, there was a case that if there would just terrified the community.
Yeah,
they were so prolific.
With Chief Moose.
Yes, and I thought Chief Moose did an excellent job. Yeah. I really do. And they gave the information to the public every single day because a lot of false information got out there. The whole thing with the panel truck, the white panel truck, that was never true. Many things weren't true. And I think Chief Moose, I mean, he probably was under a ton of pressure to hand the case over to the FBI, which he didn't do. I'm sure they helped support it. But when the case was over, the local police made the arrest, which had to make them all very happy, even though it was a very, very tragic case.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good case study, just from a communications perspective. He didn't give any daylight or opportunity for these false narratives to spin up. He was out there constantly, on the daily, sometimes more than once a day, communicating facts, putting to bed and any kind of fiction, and wound up bringing some resolution and getting those, and that really put him on the radar. Wrote a best-selling book because of it, and but again, a case study on how it could and arguably should be done. Getting out there, communicating proactively, and telling your story, man.
Yeah, it's so important because communities, people start spreading rumors. You know how you're a cop. You know how cops spread rumors, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a rumor we're not having any RDOs for the next 2 months. What does that do? It causes panic, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Get you to go sick.
They used to call it the police department the rumor mill, or they should have had an office of rumors, right?
Yeah, and you know what? And we giggle and everything like that, but no, that's an issue, and no less of an issue now, given this social media world that we're living in, man. So a whisper campaign or a little bit of a rumor mill could be troublesome. Now it's a disaster in this climate that we're operating in, because that misinformation travels at the speed of light, and the next thing you know, you're on your heels. And you're trying to make up lost ground. Primacy is the name of the game in crisis, man. You got to be the first one out there. Primacy. You got to get out there first. Tell your story first, because this is what people remember. That's what starts to generate and drive and shape public perception. It's usually, Bill, you got kids?
Yeah, well, they're 26 and 28. They used to
you remember when they were small. Susie comes in and says, Tommy just hit me, and you're ripping him a new ass. Quit hitting your sister. That's what kind of sticks with you. Well, if you would have really figured it out in the long run, it was Tommy was the one who Susie was the one who was doing all the shit stirring, and
right.
But she managed to get the primacy in there. Primacy is incredibly important, and not allowing daylight for others who quite frequently don't have our best intentions at heart to start spinning up these narratives and immediately get a hold of that public perception and more importantly start driving it. So,
well, you were a cop first, and then you became a reporter. So you have like this perfect entryway into what you're doing right now, just because the way cops work, and the way the media works. And if you can control the narrative, even you're not trying to control it, but just bring up what really happened or the other side of it, but in a timely fashion, like you mentioned, 2 weeks of Ferguson and stuff like that. These departments, they got to get consultants, and they got to get people like you almost immediately, or they should have somebody on staff. I'm surprised.
I'm sorry. Like with the NYPD, is DCPI doing that? Are they doing what your job is?
Yeah, and they've got, you have your garden variety public information officers or public affairs officers who are just, they're just specialists in your garden variety communications. That's a far cry from your crisis communicator. That's a completely different animal. NYPD's in an enviable position where they've got crisis communications experts on staff as part of their public information office through DCPI. Most police departments, even major city police departments, do not. So you've got these these specialists in there that could do your garden variety communicating. But when it hits the fan and you have an OIS or some critical incident that could generate heavy media scrutiny and public outcry, frequently they're going to have to bring me in on the back end, and that's what frequently does happen. So just finished up a contract in Bangkok with the Royal Thai Police. They had some issues going on out there with some institutional reform that they were trying to deliver, and in West Africa now with Liberia, they just got a new inspector general there who's trying to arguably turn over and I don't want to say reimagine, but redevelop arguably one of the most corrupt police departments. And that's not me saying it, it's Amnesty International saying it, on the face of the planet. So that's where I come in, usually on the back end after the genie's already out of the bottle.
Rob, one of the things that the New York City Police Department tries to be so transparent to a fault, because I was in the detective squad and they would, homicide, they would release things that we didn't want released. But obviously it was above our pay grade. We didn't make the decisions of what gets released. And to the point where they would sometimes really hurt a case.
But give me an example, Bill. I hear that so much, and I just, it's almost like that red herring thing. And, I'm not saying
I have an excellent example. We had this murder of this 90-year-old Holocaust survivor, and we identified all the perps, and we were going out that morning to arrest them. And I get a call from DCPI, and let's call him Detective Cheese. All right. Detective Cheese calls me and says, "What's going on with the case, Sarge?" I said, "We got all the perps ID'd. We're going out to get them right now." And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "What do you mean, yeah?" He goes, "What are their names?"
No,
I said, "I'm not giving you their names because we need statements. And if you put their names in the paper, they're all going to lawyer up and we will get statements." This little Detective Cheese hands the phone to the inspector, but tells him what I just said. And the inspector comes on the line screaming at me, "Who are you to decide what gets released?" And I just lied on the spot. I said, "Inspector, Chief so-and-so told me not to tell you." And that held him off. He was like, "You have him call me." I'm like, "Yeah, the chief's going to rush to call you, Inspector."
So they wanted you or they wanted to communicate the names publicly before you guys even had even had an opportunity to lock them up. Yeah, I mean, that's just irresponsible. Absolutely.
It is, but that's the New York City Police Department did that a lot. They really did that a lot. There's another case that I think of that to me was horrendous. There was a little Hasidic boy. His name was Liby Kletzel, and he was kidnapped off the street. The first day he ever walked home from school by himself, he was kidnapped by another Hasidic man who was a pedophile. And the guy kept him for like days, took him to a wedding, and was hanging out with him. Then he chopped him up. Parts of him were in his refrigerator and parts of him were in a dumpster down the block. Did that need to get released to the public?
The circumstances? Just how egregious the circumstances? Yeah. No.
I don't think so either, but they did. They did release it.
Yeah. What's the benefit of, being, and just think about the young boy's family. It's bad enough having to live it, and knowing, but it being broadcast, through the community.
Horrible. Like, what was the need that the public needed to know that? They didn't.
Better than the media, it's sensational.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough call because, who makes the decision there?
The police commissioner in that one.
Yeah, but also too, like you talk about transparent. Well, that's something that's not transparent. You don't need to know that.
And that word's thrown around a lot, Mark, and it's almost becoming white noise. I think that there's a distinction though between transparency and responsible transparency. Mm-hmm. Some things that we're communicating it like with that case. I think it's just irresponsible.
Well, look at that track, the sneaker print from the Night Stalker. Was it the Night Stalker?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you watch it on Netflix, the Night Stalker.
And you know who released that, Mark? Do you remember? What? Do you remember who?
Well, what happened? Well, yeah, it was the mayor at the time.
Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah. So they gave it to her, like, I guess, in confidence. Oh yeah, they got it. Somebody gave it to her.
No,
And
you know what it was? It was some little bucket of a chief trying to get his ticket punched, and says, "Hey, you want to know something that no one else knows?" And then she goes to the press conference and releases it. You think the Night Stalker ever wore those sneakers again?
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a bridge too far, you know. However, what I find in my travels is there's just not enough that's going out. It's never too much, It's far too frequently it's not enough. And
well, I mean, it's the difference between a case against a victim and then a police involved shooting or something like that. It's you're on that end. You're trying to tell the story from the police point of view.
Yes, yeah, and to your point, and I'm not sure if it was your Bill, not to spin it up. That's almost a 4-letter word. My business, it really is. I know it's really actually is a 4-letter word, but it's just to deliver that context and that perspective and set the narrative where it belongs instead of allowing others to spin up this false narrative that we far too frequently are witness to. That's what it's all about. I hope that there's going to come a point, and maybe I'm being Pollyannish and naive, that that there's no need for a guy like me, that the police departments just catch on and just say, gosh, we could manage this. There's no shame or there's nothing we should be worried about in getting out there and communicating our story first and providing context and perspective. And it's not even that we're communicating to the media. They're just a vessel to get us to the community. At the end of the day, some of my best friends are in the press, but at the end of the day, I don't care what the media thinks. I really don't. But I care a lot what society thinks about this profession, right? The media is just merely a vehicle to get to society. And whether we want to believe it or not, they wield enormous reach, influence, and even a level of trust, although that's waning right now, especially over the last year or so. So I think that's the lens we have to look at it through. Leverage that influence and reach that they wield to get to our society, to get to our communities by leveraging the influence and the reach of the press.
Well, hey, Bill, you want to give a shout out to the people that tuned in?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Ed Stackpole, hello. Sheila, Princess Mitch, MC's Audio, Boxing MMA, Peter Pranzo, one of our best fans, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, retired. Boxing MMA. Jerry Kane is on board.
What's up, Joe?
Another Midtown Souther. He's there, He's still enjoying those meals in the South. 12-Step Woman. Anna Benenia Strell. Christopher Strom, one of our best fans.
Good
B.
man.
Higgs.
He was on the show. Hey, Chris was on the show, right?
Chris is great. Yeah, he's got a book out, Brooklyn to Baghdad.
Yeah.
Drunk Not I Am. I love that. There was a guy who used to tend bar, and there was a guy, his name was Cowboy Don, and he says to me one day, he goes, "The drunker I stay here, the longer I get." I always remembered that. I said, "Don, do you mean the longer I stay here, the drunker I get?" I loved it,
That was
Sandra Rivera, Princess Mitch, Chris Charles. I think I got B. Higgs. I pretty much got everybody, I think. Yeah, I think that's. Did I miss anybody? 12-Step Woman. Did I miss you? No.
No, you mentioned her.
Vivian Puglia. She was one of my students at Monroe College, and she's a Marine. Hoo-yah! I had to say that to her.
That's great.
I hope she's still listening,
Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. And if you really want to help us out, we have a Patreon page. And Bill, we have one gentleman here. Our guest tonight is dipped in butter. Tell them all about it.
Oh, we have 3 tiers on our Patreon. The first one for $7 a month, you're called The Bucket. For $9 a month, you get to polish my rack. And for $11 a month, you get to dip them in butter. Whatever you want to dip in butter, you can do. But you get all kinds of extra content on our Patreon. Some people actually even pay more money just because they love us so much. But thank you very much for all our Patreon people.
So you're out there in North Carolina. What do you do? Fly around the world to help these people out?
Yeah, essentially, last year is calmed down somewhat because of, the limits with travel. But yeah, I got a day gig too, but the side hustle is really what kind of drives me and keeps me getting out of bed every morning. I couldn't get out of New York quick enough. And it's funny, you wouldn't believe. Well, maybe you guys probably would. All the MOS that are just getting out of Dodge, out of the snake pit up there, and heading down here.
Yeah, it seems like that's the destination point.
Yeah, lateraling over, and our gang down here, getting some really squared away, experienced, guys and women from up there, and it's just a shame. I haven't been up there in a while, but I'm hearing it's not that great, huh?
Sandra Rivera actually lives in Charlotte. She wants to know if you need an assistant. So
yeah,
hard worker. She runs. She's out there running and walking 9 miles a day, and she listens to us. And I always say this, but I sure hope she never gets a car. But yeah.
No, Rob's in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, right, Rob?
Yeah.
What colleges are in Charlotte?
UNCC, University of North Carolina, Charlotte. I'm about an hour and a half or so away from Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
That's a big college town, Chapel Hill. I mean, you can't get into Chapel Hill unless you're a North Carolina state resident, pretty much, right?
Well, I mean, if you want to be able to afford it, I mean, it's pretty costly, but you get.
Unless you're 7'2" and can.
Yeah, you can toss that ball into the hoop. Yeah, they've got a great basketball program, and obviously Duke is here, and NC State, and yeah, we've got some good schools here. A couple of hours from the mountains, a couple hours from the beach.
My kids, both my sons went to Elon in Burlington.
That's a great school. It's a wonderful.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah,
and you know what it is? They didn't get a dime. I had to pay for the whole thing. They were smart enough to get in, but not smart enough to get any money.
Gotta put in all that time. You can't take it with you. You may as well pay it somewhere, right?
Yeah. Let me ask you something. But every time I do some acting on the side. I do some commercials and stuff. Not enough, but I get disqualified for so many things because of my New York accent. That never came into play with you?
Yeah, it's so funny. Before I left New York, when I was endeavoring to do this kind of thing, mine was thick, really. And I'm a Long Island guy.
Me too. It's even worse, Long Island. Yeah. People would say when I was in Buffalo, this one professor said to me, he goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "New York." He goes, No. "Where are you from?" I go, "Long Island." He goes, "I knew it." I was like, I didn't realize there was that regionalness,
Yeah, it's very telling. And I paid a shit ton of money to get rid of the accent, knowing that I was going to get into this.
I tried to, man. She gave me my money back. I went to this lady's office right there in the downtown in the village there. She had pictures of Meryl Streep, Al Pacino, Robin, all on her wall that she trained them to speak a certain dialect, right? I go there on my third session. She's handing me like $600 back. I'm like, "What's this?" In cash. She goes, I don't think I can help you. I don't want to take your money. I'm like, "What do you mean you can't help me?" She goes, "You don't practice enough." I said, "I practice when I'm home. I can't practice at work. I'm a cop. What am I going to be? Thou art under arrest. Come hither."
But I tell you, in hindsight, I wish. Well, you guys, I would never pay it. If I were to do it all over again, it's endearing. People love it down here. They all lean in they love the New York accent. And you get into the business, you want to be as generic as possible. I even shed my name, Tufano, when I started my first on-air gig. I went to Harrington, Rob Harrington, my street name when I lived on Long Island in Lindenhurst. And, because I just wanted to be as generic as possible. In hindsight, like, what the hell was I doing? I should have just have kept it, not paid to shed the accent, and it plays well. It lands really well down here. And I think you always wondered how did Sean Connery get over all those years, and Marlon Brando, and I get Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. How did they all get? They had a semblance of New York accents. I mean, not Sean Connery, but he had an even thicker one, like a Welsh accent, right? Yeah, or you could flip it, and you look at someone like Madonna, who's got a British accent, and she's from Detroit. I don't know how the hell that happened. Yeah, that's well. Ridiculous. I tell you what, it's funny. I before this Corona thing, I had this part on FBI's Most Wanted, and the lead actor there, you've seen him before. He was in the Fantastic Four. He was the leader there, but I think he's from Australia.
The lead actress there, she was from England. Everybody was there was a guy there from South Africa, and we're all talking, and then everybody's talking in their own accent, and then all of a sudden when they say action, then everybody jumps into their American, the way they speak American perfectly. The only person that stood the same way the whole time was me.
It's amazing.
I kick out of my accent.
I wouldn't change a thing if I
got.
No, man, it's endearing. People love that,
Yeah.
Well, then why did news directors not like it when you?
I think they do. I think that I do. I think that plays well anywhere in the country now, man.
Yeah. Listen, at this point right now, nobody's going to pay me to do Shakespeare. But if you want, a chubby New York ex-cop, man, I'm ready to roll.
You're the guy.
I'm ready to roll.
I can't wait. When I had Tommy Dades on, who's from Brooklyn, and myself, but a Brooklyn accent is very distinct, and you sound like a wise guy. When I have him and Larry Mazza on together, the fans are going to go crazy hearing those accents.
It's next week, right? You got that going next week?
Well, April 6th. It's on a Tuesday night at 8:00.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And I'm going on vacation on the 10th. I'm going to Isla Morada, and I'm going to do when I catch a gigantic swordfish, I'm going to film that in a live broadcast.
Oh, yeah, I want a piece of swordfish, man. I had some swordfish the other night.
I can't go out to the ocean. My son's a little wimp. He won't go out where the waves are.
I was going to say, if you catch a swordfish, put it in that box with the dry ice and send it to me.
Yeah,
I love swordfish, man.
Yeah,
anyway, we reached the hours. I want to make sure that we get all the plugs in where we can get your stuff. So I'm a police department right now. We're in a shitstorm. I need the fixer to come in. How do I get in touch with the fixer?
You can go to my website, TufanoMedia.com. You hit me on Facebook, Tufano Media Group, and LinkedIn, just under my name, Rob Tufano. Probably the three easiest ways to get me.
Now, Rob, I saw your website, and you have a lot of people working for you. Are you the president, or are you just a member of the Hair Club for Men?
Yeah, I'm the purveyor. Yeah, I'm the guy over there, and I've got some retired and even current law enforcement that are good enough to work for me, and some communications experts that I bring in, some videographers. We also produce recruitment videos for different departments around the country, and do a lot of marketing and branding. And
if I move down there to where were you again?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh,
you gotta go down.
Charlotte. You think you throw me a job, maybe smacking somebody around? I
love it. And I got a list.
Just pour it, smack the shit out of me. Just tell me. You want me? I'm that guy. I just walk up to people and start smacking them around.
Yeah. And that list is voluminous for sure.
That's a New York thing. Just grab, start smacking them around.
So, Rob, do the Charlotte people, the natives from Charlotte, do they like people from New York?
Yeah. Hey, look, my neighborhood, it's I just may as well still be living on Long Island. I mean,
I know, really.
Next door, Jersey across the street. I got Bay Ridge just a couple of doors down. You'd be hard pressed to find a native down here now. The northern exposure down here is just incredible.
Well, it's funny. James Shanahan, who's been on the show, and he's in business with Jack Cambria. They they were hostage negotiators, and they do the de-escalation of force training all over the place. He's living down in Cary, North Carolina. I said, you might as well be in Pearl River. It's like Cop Town, USA, Cary, North Carolina, right?
Very affluent community, Cary. Yeah.
No kidding.
Some money. Yeah, some jack out that way for sure.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Anywho,
I'm sure you're happier down there than up here.
Yeah, I mean, I miss the culture. I miss the food. I kind of miss the vibe and everything else like that. But for the cost of the living and the safety and the sunshine and the no bullshit. I mean, it's.
Hey, listen, at this day and age, if you really wanted to have a good bagel, they'll fly them to you on dry ice. They'll fly you 5 pizza pies from your favorite pizzeria. They just throw them dry ice and you put them in the
bagels, no pizza, no Chinese food down here. It's just it's obscene, but it's a trade-off.
It's the water, man. I'm sure there's people that try, but it's just the water. It's that New York City. You get that brown gook. It said like a black gook that you get all around your forehead and stuff like that. But you didn't realize that that's the same thing that makes a great bagel and a great slice.
Yeah, but Mark, you know where that water comes from? It comes from the Croton Reservoir up in Westchester.
Right by
That's where the New York City water comes from.
Right by the palatial estates.
Yeah. So it's true. That's what they always say. The best bagels, it's because how the New York City water reacts to the dough, and the same thing with bagels.
There may be something to that. I mean, I've tried a lot of pizza, a lot of bagels down here, and they all slap New York signs on the. Right. There's nothing that even comes close. And I mean, I'm down here for 15 years now, and no success, no luck.
They had years ago. They had some wise guys. They just got tanker trucks with water and drove them down south.
Yeah, but I don't think that's lucrative.
That costs a lot of money, I think.
Yeah, cost effective. But I tell you guys come down, you're never going to go back. When you see what you can get for your money down here, and it's just a different way of living.
Yeah,
it's a nice way of living.
Yeah, no, listen, especially right now with what's going on here, and you get a little bit older, you don't want to deal with the weather anymore. So who knows?
Well, you were talking just the other night, right? What you would think in Florida, right? Is that
I would like to move there eventually.
I mean, how much more can you do between the taxes and the nonsense?
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this pandemic, really showcased, state by state and where you feel more comfortable at.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And New York is not the place right now. It's tough getting by, but hopefully we're getting a lot of federal money coming in right now, so. That's part of it. So hopefully they'll use it wisely, and we'll be able to bounce back.
Yeah, but you're not getting any of it, and neither am I.
No, I'm just saying
we're going to pay for it.
Any businesses that manage to stick around, manage to hold out, they're at their last. If they can get some funding, and if maybe, who knows, if there was somebody else who could get back into business or give it out for small business loans and let them start again, whatever. We need to get jumpstart this thing over here. Otherwise, it's, what are you going to do?
All right, toughest place on the face of the planet. You guys are going to bounce back, no doubt in my mind.
I hope so, man. From your mouth to God's ears. Anywho, man, this was a great episode.
Rob, you were a great guest. Thank you so much. And I have to thank Mark Mulitz for introducing you to us.
Best of luck to you. I am a big fan, and can't wait to see what's coming down the pike with you guys.
If I come down south, I'm going to look you up.
Yeah, I'm coming down there, man. I'm going to need a job, man.
Plenty of room. Plenty of room.
You need somebody smacked around, let me know.
I'll do it, gentlemen.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all. You guys listen to Police Off the Cuff After Hours. Thank you for listening.